mystical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, that is right. So welcome everybody on in to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of our Hot Take Show, live immediately after the airing of the Timothée Chalamet and boygenius episode of Saturday Night Live. My name is John from the SNN. Very pumped to be back with you after 1 week off, to be back for some new SNL. And this was a really fun episode of the show. Timothée coming in for his second time as host, and we saw a lot of stuff from his first time as host. So it'll be great to get into all of that with our panel tonight and everybody here in the chat. So first, let me welcome in for the first time on a Hot Take Show this season. It is Sammy Kay. Sammy, how are you?
John, I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I was excited to hear I would be on this particular Hot Take Show because I loved the first Chalamet episode from our first season of podcasting. Like, definitely one of my favorite episodes from that season. And I'm just excited to break down this one.
Absolutely. Yes. We started podcasting in season 46. And I have to say, looking back at that season, Timothée Chalamet's episode of SNL was one of the best episodes from that season. It was a lot to talk about there. So it'd be great to get back into what we thought of his second round at hosting SNL. And then joining us for the first time during season 49, welcome back to the podcast, Amanda Barkin. Amanda, how are you?
Hello, I am great, John. This is the latest that I've stayed up in about a year. So very excited to be here. Excited to reunite with you and Sammy and to talk about the episode tonight.
Yeah, we got the Bupkis group back in the building. So, so much fun to get to do this. All right. Well, let's talk about the host and musical guests and everything that we saw tonight with our hot takes or headlines from the night. I thought this was a really fun episode. Lots of callbacks, like I said, to the previous time that Timothée Chalamet hosted SNL, and even some stuff that we got to see from last season. So really felt like they were trying to bring out some of the best hits. Sammy, what did you think of the episode tonight? What were your hot takes or headlines from the night?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this episode. It really did feel like a sequel to like that first Timothée Chalamet episode, but easily my biggest kind of headline coming out of it is Chloe Trost, who's on, my fantasy team, but her getting that showcase towards the end of the night was really exciting to see. Like, a lot of times we see featured players kind of get that spot on Update, which this season doesn't, necessarily seem to be the case with kind of the shorter updates. But I thought her sketch was really great. Like, she totally anchored that, and I'm excited to talk about it a lot more a little later when we get to that sketch.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. Very happy for Chloe Trost. So congratulations, Chloe, on that one. Amanda, how did you feel about tonight? Any hot takes or headlines from this evening?
I loved it. I had a lot of fun the entire time. My headlines are recurring characters done well, recurring sketches done well. And also my other headline would be good host musical guest combo. I feel like the musical guests really felt like a part of the show tonight in ways that they don't always. So very excited about that.
Yeah, I think tonight your viewership, like when you're viewing the show tonight, I think your evaluation or how you're going to feel about tonight is going to depend on what you look for from SNL. I think tonight was one of the more meta episodes in the show's history, where almost every sketch was a callback to something that you would have had to really watch SNL and be a fan of the show to enjoy a lot of these things. We didn't get a lot of fresh concepts tonight in the way that we did with that Chloe Trost sketch, so that was probably more the exception there, and then what we saw throughout the night. So look, for me, I think that this type of show does work more often because I am the target demo for somebody who watches every episode of Saturday Night Live and analyzes things like crazy. So for me to know that, okay, are we potentially getting a tiny horse here? Oh, wow, is this the rap round table? Like, these are the types of things that, this was made for us, right? This is what we do. But it may not work for everybody. So I can understand, some people would be like, wait, I didn't really get fully that concept here, because there were a lot of callbacks to really understand and appreciate everything in multiple sketches, and not even just the Timothée Chalamet sketches. Like, we're going to get into the cold open in a second. Call back to last season, a cold open that we saw. So we'll get to talk about that now. So when we do talk through every sketch, once again, we want to see your thoughts in the chat, and we will bring them up on screen. So let's kick things off with our discussion of the Republican presidential debate cold open here, or the primary debate cold open, where Keenan opens things up as Lester Holt. We see Molly as Chris Christie, Heidi as Nikki Haley, Jon Higgins from Please Don't Destroy as Ron DeSantis. That was a huge question mark. We've been asking on the podcast for a long time, who is going to play DeSantis? And the impression, at least temporarily, maybe for the jokes, maybe not, goes to Jon Higgins here. We get Ego as Ramaswamy. We get Devin as Tim Scott. And then, of course, JAJ comes in to interrupt the whole thing. And we get basically a reprise of what we saw during the Last Supper cold open from Molly Shannon's episode during Easter last year, where he is talking and everyone is frozen behind him. So, Sammy, let me hear your thoughts on our first look at the 2024 presidential election with this cold open.
Yeah, this was interesting because they, are kind of trotting out the cast and people doing, new impressions for the first time. And yeah, like the Jon Higgins thing, like totally was like, oh, wow, that's like a big surprise seeing him as DeSantis. And I was kind of interested to hear, more from him on that. And if there's kind of any real takes to these impressions, but then we kind of slowly see that that's not necessarily what the sketch was about. The sketch was, basically, like you said, like a reprise of that Molly Shannon cold open. And I really liked kind of, all the meta references. The way that this kind of turned into Trump roasting, the cast and also like, mainly the candidates, but also the cast. I thought that was great. I mean, the Lisa from Temecula shout out. I mean, that is just kind of proving how big that sketch was for them to kind of reference that. But the Paul Rudd reference about, oh, I guess we're not going to be seeing DeSantis much. Maybe they'd get Paul Rudd to do it. I thought like all that was really fun. I did, feel like at times, I don't know if I don't think it was as successful as that kind of prior version of this, because I felt like the cast was like very much holding it together this time around, and I feel like a big thing that worked for me in that last one was kind of seeing the cast break. So overall, I think this was solid, and mainly for me the kind of fourth wall breaking really kind of carried this, and there was a lot of kind of some of the Trump stuff we've seen, but that's kind of my overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the Paul Rudd joke I thought was really funny because they actually did have Paul Rudd come into the show in 2019 to play Emmanuel Macron. So for, it was like, this is not so dissimilar to something that, they would have done a few years ago. Now, saying all of that, I thought that the choices here for the cast, I think they were really interesting choices. I do think that Jon Higgins would be a big swing to be chosen to play DeSantis, given that this was the biggest question mark in terms of political impressions coming into this, section of politics. A lot of people thought it might go to Marcelo, so I thought it was interesting. Now, was this just for the joke? That is the big question. And once we see potential DeSantis down the road, are we going to get Jon Higgins or not? I think those things are really interesting. But to your point, Sammy, I love that they got so meta with these jokes. I think that really changed my opinion of this cold open and made it much better for me. Amanda, what did you think of our cold open we saw tonight?
I mean, I agree. I think that the meta of it really saved it and made it feel fresh. And I think on that note, I was really focused on Jon Higgins being in the sketch. Like that really took me out for a second. I agree that I think them breaking is kind of what does it. But I also was like really impressed watching, like I was watching Heidi and she really wasn't moving at all. And that was just like very impressive to me. I would say I'm also, as an American, very stressed out to have the election cycle brought in this way. And I kind of been putting it out of my mind until tonight that we are in an election cycle, and that will trickle into Saturday Night Live, which is, I have mixed feelings about, obviously. But I thought it was good. I thought it was, again, it could be a little shorter always. Love JJ. There are things that they can cut from it, I think. But otherwise, I thought it was good. I thought it had some freshness to it that political cold opens don't always. So happy to see that.
Yeah, and you may be watching this thinking that the decisions to cast certain cast members as political impressions, it might not matter that much. But to these cast members, it is a little bit of a big deal when you start to put together the field of potential presidents in a year from now. Whereas most people believe that we may see a Biden versus Trump thing again. But you never know. There's a long time between now and then. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And when you start to place people in these roles, not only does it, start to affect how people view these candidates politically, but also as far as how important these cast members become on the show. It's a really, really big deal. So when you sit down as producers to start to cast these roles, it could be make or break for some of these cast members in terms of their careers on the show. And I've heard former cast members talk about this a lot. Well, if only this person had won the election, I would have stayed on the show a few more years and really done something. These are things to think about here. So look, we're just at the beginning stages, the first mile marker in this race towards the presidential election, but it is something to think about as we start to look at these cold opens, especially towards the second half of season 49, as to who will be making a big impression in the political sphere on Saturday Night Live. So for me, that's why I find this fascinating. Go ahead.
I just want to say meta also is that the real political figures also do care about who is playing them on Saturday Night Live. Like Candace Owen was always commenting on, Ego playing her, and Trump has always weighed in. So I thought that aspect was funny, like that, making a joke at that these political figures really do care about how they're being portrayed and who's playing them. So it's interesting for them to see also who's, like, I'm sure Ron DeSantis is, or someone on his team is wondering who's going to play him on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. And overall, I did feel like the Molly Shannon cold open, the version of this that we saw last season, was a better version of this. I think that it was original. It was really fun with the Last Supper and everyone being frozen in time. And then, Trump, JJ talking about the fingers and all that stuff. Like that was a really, it was really well done. I don't mind that they went back to the well, but I think that, like Sammy said, the things that hit the most was the stuff about, Ego used to be Lisa from Temecula. Now she's this. And we got one of the Destroy Boys. I think that was fun, especially with the Please Don't Destroy guys having their movie coming out next Thursday to give them that extra boost on the show. I think was a little fun here. So I didn't mind the cold open tonight. Do I think it was the best it could have been? Probably not, but still had some fun with it. Let's talk about the monologue we got tonight from Timothée Chalamet, who talks about basically we had like 3 monologues in one. Every now and then we get this. This isn't something we've seen over the last couple of years, but now we saw really distinct ideas being formed into one monologue. First with Timmy talking about the first time he was hosting. Everybody was in masks. Obviously, this was in December of 2020, where we had the audience filled with first responders and everybody was in masks there. Then talks about the SAG strike being over. And could only talk about his commercials, but now he gets to sing a version of Pure Imagination called Shameless Self-Promotion. And then in comes Marcelo with the babyface rap, and we got him and Punky and Keenan in there. So there was a lot of stuff happening here. Amanda, what did you think of the monologue that we got from Timmy?
Oh, I loved it. It might have been a product of watching it live and just being excited, knowing that I was coming back on the Hot Take show tonight, but I really liked it. I liked Punky the best of the entire monologue. I think that she did incredible Nicki Minaj, and that was really exciting to see. Is Timothée Chalamet a good singer? I still am not sure.
Well, he's about to be in a musical. The Wonka movie, I believe, is a musical. So hopefully,
right.
Yeah, he's super talented.
He's wildly talented. The rap was like not horrible. It was just really fun. I think it was high energy. He's been on the show before. He did my mom was an extra in Saturday Night Live, and I grew up watching Saturday Night Live, and I'm from New York bit last time. So we have that. We know that he's sentimental. We know that he cares about the show. So it was fun to just like get into it. And I think that he was probably really excited. Like, I think everyone's probably really excited the strike is over and that everyone was kind of feeding off that energy. I'm glad that didn't take over the show also, though, jokes about promoting projects now that the strike has been lifted. So I thought it was good. I thought it was like the right tone and the right energy, and it got me excited for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I just felt that the distinct nature of the two aspects of the monologue, specifically the talking about the SAG strike being over and then doing the babyface bit, was really just two different vibes completely. So I see everybody in the chat, Sammy, talking about how one part of the monologue must have been written before the SAG strike was over and then one was written after, and they sort of just merged the two together. And unfortunately, I don't think they clicked for me together. Individually, if I just watched them on their own, I think I would have enjoyed them much more. But together, I was like thrown for a little bit of a loop there.
That's interesting. I think it worked for me overall. I definitely could also see the seams of it, like everyone else is sort of saying, of this kind of being something that they felt like they had to do, or maybe not had to do, but like they could do. And I'm sure if you're Timothée Chalamet, coming onto SNL and you have an opportunity to plug your movie, why not? I suppose when you weren't able to do that for so long. I thought the Wonka bit was like really fun. The line where he's saying how like Hugh Grant got that Oompa Loompa dump truck, like that's like just was like a very funny line. I love when he kind of goes into the audience and like kind of incorporates that aspect of it. Showing the AI bleachers, like the kind of AI extras in the bleachers, that was also like a fun little cutaway. But I do think for me the highlight was the babyface rap. I love seeing kind of the opportunity to put, we kind of talk about this from like a production standpoint or just as like SNL super fans, like putting Marcello in the monologue, like with Timothée Chalamet, like that's huge for him. Also seeing Punky in there as well. And then if you're going to have that babyface rap, it just makes so much sense to put someone like Keenan in there. And I just loved even his kind of element to it too, was like sort of meta with talking about being on Keenan and Kel. And obviously we saw him, finally reference that on SNL last season with Keke Palmer. So as far as like just energy going into the show, I thought, this was kind of like a great way to start the night.
Yeah, I will say that I think the babyface part was the best part for me. It reminded me a lot of, I think it was probably in the early 2000s, like the early 30s of SNL, where we had like a West Coast versus East Coast monologue, where like a bunch of we had like different rappers from the cast, and like that was fun. And I do think adding, Marcello and Timmy together, like really, it reminded me a lot of Pete and Timmy from the first time that he hosted the show. But I do think it was fun. I think Punky was great in this, and I think Keenan was great as well. I just wish this was the full monologue. I think for me, this could have been our best monologue of the season had it been all of that. And it just sort of took away from it for me with having like all those extra parts in there. All right, let's get into our first live sketch of the night. And in comes, if you saw in the commercial break, you saw the big hip hop across the screen as we were getting ready for this sketch. And here at the 50 years of hip hop, the Hip Hop Museum celebrating, we're going to have a panel. And right away, we get Ego reprising her role as Nunya Business. Punky is here as Mary J. Blige, J.J. as Rick Rubin, and Keenan as Cornel West, who, by the way, played Cornel West on the show, I think last back in like 2012. So it's been a long time. I was expecting some Questlove. No Questlove this time, no Pete Davidson this time, but in comes Timmy as Smoke Cheddar to Asketta, who is back once again to reprise the yurt, skeet, all of that. And this was exactly what you thought you might get when you saw that Timothée Chalamet was going to host SNL for the second time. So, Sammy, what did you think of this sketch?
Well, about 10 minutes before the show started, me and my girlfriend and our friend rewatched the first sketch. That they did, when Timothée first hosted. So it was nice to have that fresh in the mind. I mean, this is the type of thing where it's like the fans want this. This is like the fan service kind of aspect of this night that we kind of see throughout a couple sketches here where they kind of had to do this. And I thought it was like a pretty successful follow-up. Not having Pete there definitely, kind of, puts a lot more of the weight on, Timothée Chalamet's character to kind of carry those parts. And I thought Pete was great in that first sketch. So kind of missed him. Kind of would have been nice to see someone from, some of the newer players in the cast maybe fill that role, whether it be Marcello or, Dismukes maybe, I don't know. But I think the additions here were great. JJ's Rick Rubin, if you guys like aren't familiar with Rick Rubin, like that's like a really solid impression. Something I never really thought I'd see on SNL. So that was fun to see. And, despite not having Pete there, I do think the addition of Keenan really kind of fills that kind of comedic void in a way. Kind of just the way that he kept kind of chiming in, saying like, what happened to Brother Guap Lord? Like, things like that in like a very Keenan way. I thought was really fun. And then, obviously they had to, do another rap, the drip rap. Is it as good as the Yeet? I'm not sure, but I think as far as like bringing back a recurring character goes, I thought this was a pretty successful outing for this character.
Yeah, I felt like it was good, and I think Timothée was really strong in this sketch, but I do feel like I was really missing Pete in this one. And I think that, they hit all the beats of what you were looking for from Timothee, with some of his answers being just so ridiculous and so off base. But I think that what made that first sketch for me was how annoying the two of them were together. And I think we needed somebody to play off of Timothee in a way that, like, I get what you're saying, Sammy, about Keenan, but I really felt like a Marcello type could have been in there in that role tonight for them to be annoying the group together, because I think it would have been more impactful. And I know maybe that would have felt less refreshing to some of you, but I felt like that spice on top of the sketch was missing a little bit for me. Amanda, what do you think of it?
Well, I was Timothée Chalamet in this sketch for Halloween. I brought my wig.
Oh, wow.
That I just found on the floor. It's actually
Very
not
impressive.
that good. And he had straighter hair this time. So I was like, oh, I think this is like Frenchie from...
Why haven't you been wearing this for the whole show?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to put it on at the beginning of this sketch, and then you guys were talking, and I was just waiting to put it on, holding it in my hand.
Grand reveal.
Yeah, it's actually quite itchy. I miss Pete. I always miss Pete, so that's like not really anything different for me. But I thought it was great to see it. They had to do it. I also really enjoyed Keenan. I feel like Sammy always takes the words out of my mouth, so when you let him speak first, I don't have as much to say, but that's okay. Keenan was great. JJ was great. Punky was great. They had to do it. I also really wanted to see Dismukes fill Pete's role. I was thinking about before who should do it, and Dismukes seems like the obvious choice. I wish that there was more Dismukes in general, so maybe that is coloring my opinion, but good reprise, nod to my Halloween costume. They got to get their TikTok views in. I don't even remember what was the line in his song, this sketch. Cha-ching?
It was drip.
It was cling. It was cling, 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 drip, splash water.
How did it
that's
sound?
Great.
You're not going to get me to reference.
Save it for the round table. He's got practice.
Save it for the round table. You got to come back on Monday night for that good stuff.
Okay. They're missing like the "you never love me, mom" part is like the best part of the sketch to me. So I feel like they're missing that kind of aspect. But I guess that came from Pete. That came from Guap Lord. So without Guap Lord, where was Guap Lord tonight? Why was Chetta the ass?
I believe they said that he was fundraising for Mayor Eric Adams and now has to lay low in Turkey. So that's where Guap Lord was. I believe Sammy actually saw Guap Lord in person last night. So
it's true.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought that the Keenan spanking him part gave me a really funny, like that was giving me a really good laugh. I felt like I was like, okay, well, Questlove slapped him last time, like what are they going to do? And I think like that change for the second one worked. I agree that this is something that the show had to do, but I just, like I said, I felt like I missed Pete in this, and there's not a lot of sketches where I'm like, oh man, I really miss Pete, but this was one of them. So there you go. All right,
I feel that way about every sketch.
I know you do. I'm going to let you go first on this one because we have to talk next about the Britney Spears audition sketches. It's been a while since we saw these audition sketches. We used to get them all the time with the Star Wars, Jurassic Park auditions. But these are a Colin Jost staple where Britney Spears is auditioning people to do the audiobook for The Woman in Me. We get to see Chloe Fineman as Britney Spears. I'll run through all the impressions, then I'll ask Amanda what she thinks. Heidi as Allison Janney. Chloe, again, as Timothée Chalamet. Timothy as Martin Scorsese, Mikey Day as Steve-O, Sarah as John Mulaney, which was fun, Molly as Kevin James with the Kevin James meme. We get Chloe again as Natasha Lyonne, Bowen as my Schneider friend from the B-52s. We get a Julia Fox from Chloe, Ego as Jada Pinkett Smith, again reading the wrong book, Keenan as Neil deGrasse Tyson, J.A.J. as Werner Herzog, Punky as Ice Spice, Trost as Dame Maggie Smith, and then Longfellow as Bill Hader. So, Amanda, what were your favorite moments for the Britney Spears auditions?
Oh man, I just listened to the book, so that was like fresh in my mind. And now like Michelle Williams and Britney Spears' voices have kind of meshed together. So I think Michelle Williams was the right choice out of this cast of characters. I would cast Michelle Williams again. My favorite moment was definitely Sarah as John Mulaney. The book is really sad, so that took me out for a second. Like it's very upsetting. The most of the book and just basically what we as a country and as a society did to Britney Spears. So I felt a little sad making fun of it, but it was more of an impression parade after all. It was definitely a Chloe showcase. I think you could have Chloe do all the impressions and I would still want to watch it. So she's just like in a league of her own. I think she's probably the best impressionist on the show right now and maybe for a while. So it's always good to have a Chloe impression moment. I don't love the audition tapes. They're not my favorite. I don't think it's that creative at this point, but I like the tie-in to the Britney book and that cultural moment. So happy for that. They got to bring Jada Pinkett Smith back and tie back into that other cultural moment. So I see what they were doing. And it was fun.
Sammy, I just think it's really fascinating in this era of the show to do a sketch like this because it worked really well in previous eras where you had a lot of people with sketch comedy backgrounds. But when you start filling your cast with stand-ups who are not used to doing impressions, you're sort of, forcing square pegs in round holes to be like, okay, who can do what here and what makes sense? And we got a lot of wild impressions here, people you would never expect to be a part of this. Like I do feel in the previous audition sketches, at least some of the, you could wrap your mind around, could this person actually audition for Back to the Future or Star Wars or whatever it is? But here it was all over the place. Doesn't mean it wasn't fun, but I just found it fascinating to talk about. So what did you think?
Well, I feel like I've talked on some of our podcasts before, but these audition parade impression sketches, I love impressions. So especially during that era, the Back to the Future sketch, the Jurassic Park ones, I really enjoyed those. So when I saw that is what this was becoming, I got super excited. And, definitely some of the impressions were really good. I thought the JJ as Werner Herzog was really great. Again, I mean, obviously having JJ, do an impression in one of these sketches, that is something that is great to see because he's such a great impressionist. And obviously Chloe as well. But I do feel like there was something kind of, I don't know if missing is the right word, but the kind of pace that you would get from those older sketches. I know it's not like a 1-for-1 per se, but I felt like we got maybe more time with those impressions versus this one. They were kind of going quantity over quality. Definitely, some of them hit. I felt like a lot of them didn't, but I felt like a lot of them were kind of just, kind of 2 seconds, just kind of seeing them dressed as the person. You get a couple words from them and then it kind of moves on. So I'm glad they did it. It was cool to see the Michael Longfellow, Bill Hader thing after that. That's again, kind of another sort of SNL fan casty thing. Seeing Sarah Sherman as Mulaney, that was super fun. Another person I saw yesterday. And then obviously the return of Chloe as Timothée Chalamet. The Timothée Chalamet as Martin Scorsese was unexpected, and that was fun to see. And the Molly as Kevin James. Those were some of my highlights for sure. And then also got a shout out. Was it Chloe Trost who did Maggie Smith?
Yeah,
from Downton Abbey. That was really good too. So, oh no, sorry, I'm forgetting the best one. I thought Natasha Lyonne, the Chloe Feynman, Natasha Lyonne. It's fun when you kind of see people from SNL kind of do impersonations of people who have hosted kind of during their eras. So I'm imagining Chloe kind of as Natasha's in the building, working on that impression. So I'd say overall, I'm glad they did this. It was cool to see this cast do it, even though I felt like, this cast, kind of like you said, doesn't have necessarily those impression chops per se.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't characterize it as that. It's just that they're not known for it in the way that previous casts were. And I just want to say about Chloe Feynman, who I think is probably had statistically a slower start to the season, but I think that they're using her in the right way. They're picking their spots with Chloe and playing to her strengths. And I think that this was an example of that tonight, where clearly the best asset that she brings to the show is her ability to play all of these people. So if we're just going to be this is our one opportunity this season to throw some of these impressions out that we're not going to find sketches for, I'd rather have Chloe play 3 or 4 different people in this sketch than find a reason to have a Julia Fox appear in a sketch down the road that doesn't really make sense. I think that if she has a good impression and it's going to work, throw it in here, just throw as many as you can in here and see what sticks. Because again, this to me, these types of sketches are junk food for me, where I just watch it and enjoy and just go person to person, and everyone's going to get different things out of them. So there's not too much to break down here beyond that. And I'll just say happy to have it because we haven't seen one of these in a long time. Let's talk about the Shred Zone gym, where Heidi as Tracy has left her bag at the gym. So she calls up Mikey Day as Brett, who picks up the phone. And he's just like very gym bro dumb. And they have a very odd back and forth ultimately before Timothee gets back on the phone as Keith, whose brain is broken. And we culminate with Sarah as well at the gym. Sammy, this was a very, very weird sketch. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was super weird as well. Just the fake muscles, like the second you see Mikey pop up, I'm like, okay, like what are we doing here? But this definitely reminded me a lot of the Kieran Culkin kind of calling Xfinity sketch from a couple seasons ago, which I really like that sketch. It's really stupid. Just like, and they're playing like stupid people. I'm not saying people that work at gyms are stupid, but in this sketch they are. And I thought there was some good stuff here for Timothée Chalamet to do with the whole trying to figure out the color of the bag. I thought that was like a funny bit with like, saying that salmon, like why is that a color? You're not calling, a dog color, like whatever that joke was. I thought that was funny. The kind of going back to the like on hold music. I think it was I Like to Move It. That was super funny. And then kind of like the three-way call at the end. Those are some of those highlights. It definitely doesn't like escalate or kind of go kind of much anywhere, more so than like, these people are, not being very helpful, and it's just causing Heidi and like kind of the straight person role a lot of stress. But it was like overall, it was fine, just like good kind of visual humor with the muscles, and then Sarah at the end also was kind of an unexpected sort of thing to see as well.
Yeah. I mean, I see everybody in the chat talking about this as well. Like, I just don't know how else you could describe this sketch but being super dumb. So, like, if you're in the mood to watch something like this will hit you the right way. I don't know that it worked like in the first half of the night. Like, I do think that this was meant for like second half material where you're looking for something really stupid to satisfy your humor as you're getting more tired. So I think that there were some lines in this that worked. I wish there was more of like, there was more nuance to the sketch, especially if it was going to be the first half of the night. Amanda, how'd you feel?
I really liked it. I immediately thought, wow, this is like a 10-1, that those vibes. And I was watching with a friend and she wasn't finding it funny. So I understood that it was not going to be for everyone. I don't know why. I just thought it was so funny. I feel like Heidi was on the verge of breaking the entire time. And then kind of when Sarah pops in, she sort of does break. And it was so stupid, but they were cracking up. Like, I feel like all of them were having so much fun with it. It was quick too. I liked the pacing. I feel like it wasn't a very long sketch, which I can appreciate, like, especially when you don't have that escalation. It's kind of in and out. I thought it was very funny. I'm wondering who came up with it. And I'm curious about the decision to, put that in the spot that it did, the last live sketch, the first half before the musical guest and update. There's not a lot to be said about it because it's not very analytical. The muscles reminded me of SpongeBob. You know that episode where like SpongeBob has to wear like fake arms to go to like some gym, I think, right?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
I've seen
that's
that
what
meme many times.
That's what it reminded me of. That meme, but not the episode.
they don't get SpongeBob in Canada.
Right. That's so sad. I'll send you a clip. But
I'm sure
I've
seen it, but like, yeah.
John, to participate in this conversation, you have to have seen a lot of SpongeBob. It just reminded me of that. Mikey was funny. Yeah, did Heidi break? Was she on the verge of breaking? I feel like neither of you are picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, I am, because I can't fault anybody for breaking during this with how stupid it was. Like, it was just like one of those things where I'm sure they had a lot of fun with it. The big question is like, does that translate through the television? So again, like, I do think that, as I said, I do think this is good back half material. And I also really think that this is good live watching material. Like, this is the type of sketch that you do want to watch live as it airs on a Saturday night. Like, I don't think the Sunday morning crowd is going to enjoy this as much because you're looking for more sophistication from your sketches maybe. But again, this was like dumb fun that I think they were having here, which you don't always get from SNL. So it was fun. It was like, and like, again, between all the recurring concepts we were seeing tonight, a little bit different. So I can understand why some people in the chat felt like this may have been a first half highlight. All right, let's get into another recurring concept here where we start off on Juniper Base 2057. And I totally thought we were going to get like a Dune sketch here as we were going into space and talking about, it's really like in the midst of a battle. And we had Heidi and Marcello and Bowen, Mikey and Sarah come back from battle. And then in comes Timothee, who wants to go to meet the destroyer. And this is all leading up towards the return of the one, the only Tiny Horse, who has come back. And, Tiny Horse was a huge breakout hit from season 46 as we had that music video between Beck Bennett and Timothée Chalamet. And the question was, how can you bring back Tiny Horse for Tiny Horse 2? But Amanda, they did it. So what did you think?
They did it. Okay, so I have not seen Dune. So I wrote down literally Dune ? Because I was like, I think this is Dune, but I'm not sure. I actually started to watch it the other day and I was like 45 minutes in and I was like, I have no idea what this movie is about. It just didn't have the energy, but I really liked it. I wrote down Dune ? And Bowen's head. So that was the highlight for me, I think, was Bowen's severed head singing the Tiny Horse song, apparently. I kind of knew it was Tiny Horse. Did you guys know? Did you feel that way, like, as it was starting?
I didn't know like right away, but I was thinking as soon as Timothee starts singing, I was like, this has to be it. It was just like, yeah, I'll finish your thoughts and then I'll give my 2 cents on it.
Okay. You don't want me to start asking questions. I thought it was gorgeous. It was beautiful, like stunningly made, like crazy how they just whipped this stuff together. Like almost gave me Mario vibes from last season, like really, really well made, otherworldly, transporting set. It was great. I mean, the song is so catchy. I like that they made him into a giant horse. I thought J.J. was really good in this. That was J.J., right?
Yeah, he was unreal.
Okay, that he was really phenomenal. He's like a very good creepy villain. So notes for next time. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I could see J.J. doing that in movies for like years and years to come. So look, Sammy, I watched this and I was like, they went a long way to bring back Tiny Horse, and it could not be more different than the first Tiny Horse, which was just so like grounded in a song about a boy who's sad about this farm being sold and the horse leaving, and it just everything made so much sense. And here it was like, how can we just flip it on its head and think of the most far-fetched way to bring in giant horse into here, which will ultimately become the Tiny Horse once again. So what did you think of Tiny Horse 2?
So this was an interesting viewing experience for me because I was watching with my girlfriend and our friend, and obviously I'm a diehard SNL fan. They're definitely way more casual viewers, and like when like the kind of Tiny Horse reveal comes, like my friend like turns to me, she's like, do you guys like understand like what's going on right now? Like I feel like if you are a casual viewer, just like turning on SNL on Saturday night and you have not seen the first Tiny Horse sketch, like I don't know if this works. Like it's just straight up, I don't know if it works. But
I'm totally with you because my fiance came downstairs and came down like during this sketch, and she was like, "What is going on here?" And I was like, "No, you don't get it. Like, this is the thing."
Now, having said that, I do feel like when the first Tiny Horse sketch happened, that was one that was like definitely a grower for me. Like at first, I'm like kind of just like, this is so bizarre, and then the song is like catchy, and like the more I've seen it, I've gotten like a lot more love and appreciation for it. So I do feel like on first watch, even though having that background of like, SNL like bringing this back, I'm like impressed with the visuals. I'm impressed with the production design. I do think for me, like the highlight is JJ, who's basically playing like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. So it's almost like a little bit of a Dune and a Star Wars impression, like perfect impression as always. A lot of question marks for sure. Like I'm impressed that they decided to totally kind of, like you said, turn it on its head and do it this way, make it this big budget thing that you wouldn't expect. But I don't know. This is one that I feel like I'm going to have to like watch again tomorrow, rewatch and to really, get a grasp of whether or not I thought it worked. Like I don't know. I don't know if it worked. But I'm glad and impressed that they did it. I thought it looked amazing. And then as far as like kind of going back to the hip hop sketch where we're like, they had to do it. I don't know if this is one they had to do. So it is an interesting choice that they decided to do it. But again, I props to the team at SNL who's able to put this together in such a short amount of time. But this is one I'm interested in revisiting for sure.
Yes, and I just want to be very clear to everybody who works at the show. We know that this sketch was pure fan service. The sketch probably doesn't work for anybody who hasn't seen the first version of Tiny Horse. At least I'll have to rewatch it again and be like, okay, well, were there elements here that you could probably understand if you didn't see the first one? But again, like, I want to be clear that maybe it didn't work all the way for us, but I do appreciate the show trying to service their most loyal fans who love the show and want things like this in the show, want them to be meta. So like, I want to applaud at least that aspect of things, because again, like, you know, we're the ones that are going to like live and die with every good bad episode of the show. So I do appreciate that aspect of things here. I can't wait to rewatch this one. Honestly, this is my biggest question mark coming out of this episode, is like, there was so much going on watching this live. This definitely needs a second watch for us to analyze and break down. And we'll definitely get back on Monday for the roundtable to talk more about Tiny Horse number 2. In comes boygenius, who was performing 2 songs on the show. This was Phoebe Bridgers' second time as musical guest. She was previously a musical guest for the Dan Levy episode back in season 46. So Amanda, are you a boygenius fan? What do you think of their performances tonight?
I am. I'm a big boygenius fan, and I thought it was great. I was very excited. I was hoping to see them in the first half of the show in something, but very excited we got them in the second half. Very excited that they were the musical guests. It was just perfect. I feel like the Timothée Chalamet fans are boygenius fans, and boygenius fans are Timothée Chalamet fans. So I know they seemed really excited to be there. I mean, Phoebe always does. I recall that she smashed her guitar on her first musical guest appearance and got a lot of pushback for that, which was annoying. So I was excited to see her back, excited that she's still happy to be there, excited to see the other boys. The whole band was great, I thought. So very excited. One of the episodes where a musical guest was one of the highlights for me, and not just because I'm a fan. I thought that their performance was really great.
Yeah. And yeah, we did get a guitar smash for that second performance tonight, which was kind of fun. Another callback to a previous episode of SNL. Sammy, what do you think of boygenius tonight?
Oh, they were awesome. Like they like really killed it. I'm like more familiar with like Phoebe Bridgers than like, you know, the boygenius, like their stuff. But I thought they were awesome. Like, just really great performance. And obviously, you know, we get to see them pop up in the sketch later. I thought that was fun. Just having them in the building just definitely brought a fun energy, or just like a kind of punk rock energy. Like, I don't know. I enjoyed the music a lot. And a lot of times, if I'm not necessarily familiar with the musical act, you know, sometimes I can tune out, but this is one where I definitely was tuned in. So.
Yeah, I've also thought like a lot of Beatles vibes tonight with the way that they were dressed and like the font on the guitar and stuff like that. I was like, I assume there was some like alluding to the Beatles, and I'd be curious if any of the chat noticed that as well. But yeah, I thought they were really fun tonight, and yeah, it was exciting. It probably added to the episode for sure to have that combination there, and they were very fun in a sketch that we're going to talk about coming up. But first, we got Weekend Update back again for another week with only one correspondent coming on. And this time it is Heidi as Crystal, who was the coworker who was extremely busy doing seemingly nothing. And this was a correspondent that was cut for time from the previous episode of the show. So during season 49, episode 3, Heidi was supposed to come on. They didn't have enough time for her, so she was cut. And this is the second time we're actually getting to see Crystal on screen. The last time was also during that Molly Shannon episode, season 48, episode 17. So Amanda, what do you think about Heidi's character coming back here on the second time for Weekend Update?
It's a really good character. I think that Heidi is so impressive, and that she's so immersed in this character, and I feel like she clearly loves this character. I just don't think it's that funny, if I'm honest. I just don't, like, I don't have a lot of laugh out loud moments from it, except for kind of when she throws food at Colin Jost, because I always like when Colin Jost gets hit with whatever prop correspondent is working with. Like, it's a really amazing showcase of Heidi's acting chops. And I think she's like really good, like completely manic and insane as this character. I just don't think there are a lot of punchlines.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I did like this character a lot the first time we saw it. I felt like it was really fresh and fun to get Heidi back at the update desk. And I felt like there was really good back and forth between her and Colin that first time. This time, I didn't feel like it was as strong. I do like the character because I think like if anybody knows this person, they could totally relate. Like, is this really like lived in something that actually exists out there? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Sammy, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I feel like I just think Heidi is so good at these like super lived in performances, and even if the maybe the actual material on the page isn't as strong as the first time she did this, just the way she like puts her entire body into it is something that I always kind of take away from it, and I'm just very impressed by. Just the way she like kind of crosses her eyes looking at the pages, and like she's like kind of has this controlled chaos going around. That is what kind of makes the sketch for me. And the kind of bits that they're able to do with like the phone and the burrito and everything like that. Those are the things I take away from it. But it's probably, I mean, it's definitely not as fresh as the first time. It is just, I like the opportunity to see just the kind of physical performance she puts in, and that's kind of what I take away from it.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about Weekend Update this season and you're like, whoa, things feel shorter, there's only one correspondent, Mike Murray and Andrew Haynes had a really fascinating discussion about this during By the Numbers of week number 3. So if you want to go back to that last By the Numbers show, where they talked about the screen time for By the Numbers this year and how it compares to previous seasons. And for whatever reason, Update's been a lot shorter this season. So it's just interesting to think about, now that we're 4 episodes in, is this becoming a trend? Like, is this a production decision here that they're like, okay, we would only like one if we had to, and we're cutting things for time. Like, instead of cutting a sketch or a pre-tape at the end of the night, we're actually going to slash update more than we usually would. And I think that's a fascinating choice if that's the case. So I'm curious to see if something like that will continue. Our friend Ellis in the chat mentions that this is the first time since season 47, episode 17 through 19, where there's only been one update correspondent for 3 consecutive weeks. So just something to think about as we head towards Momoa next week. All right, post update, we got 4 different sketches we're going to talk about. So first up, we got our sleep clinic sketch where Bowen is playing a sleep doctor who has won the award for best gay doctor. Sarah is the patient who is having hallucinations and has her psyche in a chokehold because she is seeing Timothee as Troye Sivan as her sleep demon and is dancing as he does in his most recent music videos from his latest album that's just taking over all of TikTok and lots of different aspects of the world. So Troye Sivan being a really, really popular figure, I totally expected we were going to get the real Troye Sivan here. So I find it really interesting that instead we got Timothée Chalamet as Troye Sivan, and then also boygenius coming into this sketch as well. Amanda, I want to know your thoughts first. What do you think about this sketch, the sleep clinic one?
I really liked it. I think that if you're not in on Troye Sivan, then you're not going to like it at all. It's definitely very specific and to like a pop culture moment. Like, I don't think my parents would have any idea what was going on if they saw this sketch. But you know what? Sometimes that's okay. I also was completely expecting Troye Sivan to pop in, and I'm surprised that they didn't have that happen. Or I wonder if they tried and it didn't work out. Like, if Troy could have come out with boygenius, that would have been really awesome. I thought that I really liked Sarah and Bowen together. I feel like there wasn't enough Bowen tonight, so it was nice. This was clearly a Bowen sketch, I would say. So I'm glad that he was able to get this on. Sarah's funny. At first, when it first opened, I thought it was going to be like another one of those ultrasound sketches, and they were going to have like Sarah pregnant and like other people dancing in her stomach off stage the way that Sarah and Bowen did. But so then it was nice to be surprised. Like, I truly did not know the direction that it was going. And then it was about, Troye Sivan sleep paralysis. So that's something we can all relate to. So happy to see it.
Yeah. Are you having that as well, Amanda?
Mm-hmm. every night.
Well, look, it sort of reminded me, Sammy, in a way, of the Reggae Jean Page episode where we got to see like all these guys like, you know, playing pool and then running around and singing driver's license after, like that type of thing, where it's like we're gonna just like take this popular song that's happening right now that people are talking about and it's a big deal and having some fun with it, so we get this viral moment that we can also do online and compare versus the real Troye Sivan. What do you think of the sketch?
That's a really interesting comparison. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the target demographic for the sketch because I had to Google who Troye Sivan was during the sketch.
Oh, really?
So I'm old, I'm washed, I'm just not in the culture. I'm just retire me, I guess. But I will say, and a lot of times when there is a sketch where I don't get the reference, I can kind of tune out. I do feel like sometimes with sports sketches, because I'm not a big sports guy, I can tune out. And I thought that's where this was going to go, but I did really feel like the energy and just the silliness of it, that even though I didn't really understand what they were pointing to or what they were trying to kind of reference, I had fun with it. Like just the dancing and that Timothée Chalamet was doing, and Bowen really getting kind of a showcase here. You can tell he definitely had a hand in this and was totally, I don't know if game is the right word. He like put the energy into this to where even though I felt like I wasn't part of the joke, I was kind of brought in by sort of the performances. And then there was a part where I did feel like I was part of the joke where they said the thing about the cure for the straightness or something like that was the 4 seasons of Always Sunny. And as like a big Always Sunny fan, I was just like, all right, okay, cool. They got me there. So I don't know. And then obviously having boygenius coming in as well, just was very, I don't know. It one of those kind of more fun than funny sketches for me, but I did feel like despite not knowing the reference, the performances kind of won me over towards the end.
Yeah, the other sketch that this reminded me of a little bit was last season. We had the Jack Harlow episode where we had Bowen and Jack as the bartenders who were dancing. So they were also doing like a TikTok trend. So we have seen stuff like this in the past before. And yeah, if you get it, it really, really works for you. And I just think that this was fun. They were having fun with it. All right, PDD comes in next. 4 episodes in a row, we get PDD to start the season. We have to start being on watch of if PDD will be making a short for every episode this season. Already, I guess 20% through the season, they have a short in there. And this time we get PDD Jumper, where they are walking down the street and they see Timmy as Frank about to jump off a windowsill. And instead they're trying to convince him not to, and he plays this another TikTok thing going on, the frog music that a lot of people were talking about over TikTok, because he's really into his music. And there's some really fun back and forth here, including the fact that his band's name is Hamus. So just sit in that for a little bit, which I have to say, like, as a Jew, that was one of the funniest things that's happened in this entire episode. Sammy, Amanda, we laughed so hard at that. So Sammy, what did you think of the PDD sketch tonight?
I mean, that was such a great reveal. Like that killed me. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, I feel like there's always a debate of whether or not we want to see PDD out of the office or not. And I feel like I'm usually on the side of not wanting that. And I really kind of liked how they were like, again, this is getting really meta, but they are Please Don't Destroy. Like, they mentioned like something about Writers' Night. They're just kind of like taking a stroll in New York, and then they come across this Timothée Chalamet jumper character. So kind of keeping the world of the PDD stuff that they've kind of established. I like that choice. It was just very ridiculous. The choice of the music that Timothée Chalamet was playing from his band. I think Martin says it sounds like it was made by a cool frog. I thought that was a really funny line. And I know a lot of times we compare Please Don't Destroy to The Lonely Island and digital shorts, but I did get like early digital short energy from this before they kind of, got the bigger budget, like kind of musical stuff going. Like, I'm not saying it was like exactly like Lettuce or something like that, but it kind of like that just being in New York vibe definitely reminded me of that. And I don't know. This was a PDD sketch that worked for me. Just the escalation of him throwing the phone and, asking him to put in rice. There's just like a lot of good bits in here that worked for me for sure. So, and it was fun to see Chalamet in the sketch as well.
Yeah, Martin yelling about Amos and then the previous time yelling about his halal food. Like, he's really killing me in these week after week. So I think this was a really, really strong version of it. And to your point, Sammy, Lonely Island comparisons, like, I don't necessarily get it anymore between the guys, but I will say that the vibe of being not in New York, like outside of the 30 Rock area, but being still in the 30 Rock area, to me, is early digital short vibes, where they did stuff like Lettuce, and like the Doppelgangers was one of my favorite ones, where it's like right out, they're clearly sitting like right outside the building. And I just think it's like fun when they do stuff like that to bring in the world of the rest of 30 Rock into their sketches. So for me, we still got The Office, we still got that it's writing night, there's all the classic elements of a PDD short here, but I think they expanded the world a little bit, and this was one of my favorite ones that they've ever done. Amanda, what do you think of it?
Wow, that's big praise. I really liked it. I thought that the pacing was a little different than some of the usual one. Like, it didn't have the classic quick, no second between lines PDD pacing, and I feel like I missed that a little bit. I really liked Timothée Chalamet's character. I also wrote down "put it in rice." That was like one of my bigger laughs of the night. He's just like yelling it, right? He's like, "Put it in rice," like yelling down to them. They're like, I don't think that's how it works. That was one of the funnier lines all night for me. I do like that. I liked the Hamas, and then him being like later reflecting, like my band's name is Hamas. Like, that was very funny to me. I did not know this was a TikTok trend, the frog thing. So that, and I've like very on TikTok recently. I feel like I've spent a good amount of time on TikTok, and it's crazy that there's so much content that you could just not get something that is a trend, like even, it can not reach you. So that's interesting. I would like to see the TikTok trend and then rewatch it. This is a crazy thing. I've never been on a hot take show before. I was just going to say, it's crazy having only watched the sketches once and like just now, like, I feel like I blacked out a lot of stuff. Like, I gotta go rewatch this. It's crazy.
It's absolutely thrilling to be here to talk about this right after the episode. So enjoy it. But yeah, but yes, as I did like get a little bit of research done through this, like as this was happening, and I was like, okay, I get what this is from now, and I was looking it up, and it's basically like someone just created the sound, and it's like, oh, this kind of sounds like a frog, and people just loved it, and that's how it got popular. So they took it from there. But yeah, it definitely, I don't think you needed to know that to enjoy the sketch, and that's why it worked. So
yeah, I did not. This is news to me. I'm learning at 2 a.m. about a new TikTok trend, but unlike the last sketch, this, I was able to hang. So
yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's hang at the home front once. Girls, great transition. As we have Molly here, who's welcoming the girls into the sketch, and we see the two Chloes, Feynman and Trost. But this sketch is welcome to SNL. Chloe Trost, as it's her breakout moment on the show, where she starts singing about how people don't want to adopt her, and this goes on quite the tangent, and ultimately we get to meet her her boyfriend, played by Mikey Day, who put together this shady plan of getting adopted and stealing the money and all that stuff. But really, it was the singing of Chloe Trost here, which I was just so fascinated with. One of the very impressive breakout sketches that I think we're going to be talking about for a long time, assuming that Trost has a long career on the show. We're going to be looking back to this moment as a really, really big one, and only her 4th episode at the show. So Amanda, what did you think of it?
Oh my God, it was amazing. At first I was like, is that her singing? I couldn't tell. Like, it almost seems like it wasn't. I loved the sketch. I was surprised that they didn't put it, more up top in the episode. I thought it was like such a return to like the classic SNL formula, like that you set the stage and there's like a little bit of a bait and switch and it escalates from there. Timothée Chalamet being the moon was ridiculous. I mean, it could have been any type of imaginary friend, but I liked that they had him be the moon. Yeah, it was really, really funny. Like, I just like that, you think that the premise is one thing, and then halfway through you find out she's 26 years old and she could have a family of her own. She doesn't need to wait to get adopted from the orphanage. So I thought it was amazing. I'm really excited to have a singer. I didn't know that she was a singer. I feel like I'm missing, the Kates and the Cecilys. So I'm hoping that we'll get, I know that this is polarizing, but I like the ability to have music in a sketch. It doesn't have to be a full musical sketch, but I like when they're able to break out in song for whatever reason, and they're needs to be enough cast members to be able to do that. So excited to see if we're going to get more music out of her. So
yeah, I mean, I felt like this sketch really, really worked in this episode where it felt like nothing else we were seeing in the episode. Everything was a callback, everything was fan service, but this was fan service in a whole other way where we're getting a new concept with a new cast member here who was able to show off her chops in a way that we haven't seen before. And I loved every minute of it. So, Sammy, what do you think of Chloe Trost's breakout sketch here?
Well, like I said at the top of this episode, like this was easily the thing I'm kind of taking away from this episode. It was so great. A lot, like I said, a lot of times we see this kind of, introduction to the cast on Update, and she got to totally anchor and headline the sketch. Obviously, she's had kind of bit parts in the first couple episodes here, but was just a delightful surprise. Was really like kind of getting my thoughts together towards like the end of the episode, like this towards the end of the night, and then like out of nowhere, kind of like reshapes kind of like this episode for me. Like this sketch alone like elevates the episode for me. I thought it was just a very impressive performance. She was able to have a great voice, but also like be funny, like with the way she was singing, like the way she kind of, used her voice as kind of as an instrument. I guess that's how you use your voice. But no, just the performance was great. The escalation where you find the reveal that she's 26, and then like the things that keep kind of getting revealed, and the Chalamet kind of reacting like it could have kind of been like a throwaway sort of part for him, but I really thought he was kind of selling that sort of dynamic there. And then you kind of throw in Mikey Day there towards the end as well, and giving him that kind of opportunity to bounce off of Chloe as well and kind of add to the lore of this character. I really thought it should have been earlier in the night. Like it obviously works here, and it kind of also works as like a kind of towards the end of the night surprise. But like I know this wasn't the 10-1, but it didn't feel like this necessarily needed to be the place for it. Honestly, you could have maybe even switched this sketch with the sketch with Mikey and Timothée Chalamet, the gym sketch. Like I think that maybe would have been a better thing that could have elevated both. But on its own, super impressive. Hoping that this kind of momentum, with this sketch will, give us more from Chloe towards as we get to Christmas for this next string of episodes. And, she's on my fantasy team. So, I'm just excited for that reason as well. So this is a very, very big night for Chloe Trost.
Yeah, you don't get extra points for her having a breakout sketch with just being a sketch works. I will say the button on this sketch I think was really great too, with them holding the knife and then like being scared. And I loved it. It was so great from Chloe. I can't wait to talk about this one more. I think that this was definitely my highlight of the night. And I thought it was going to be the last sketch of the night, but we were going to get one more. And here is the Calm app where we get our typical recording studio schedule. A set piece, and we get Punky Johnson, who has written a Calm app that Timothée Chalamet has brought in to record sleep stories, and Andrew Dismukes is in this as well as the producer, and it's all a story about a dog pooping in a garden, and they go back and forth about it and getting Timothée, pushing him to scream louder. And then we get the button on this sketch, which was it really felt like the fall of 2020 here, because in comes Alec Baldwin, who we've been talking for a very long time on this show about will we ever see him on Saturday Night Live again? I do have to wonder if he was like in the building to like hang out, and then they were like, hey, Alec, maybe now's the time to get you back in a sketch. It was just really, really fascinating. Obviously, he has been celebrated a lot at the show as being the person who has hosted the show the most and has had many great appearances at the show, but clearly off the show there's been a lot of issues since the last time we saw him and the Chappelle episode in season 46. So for seeing Alec Baldwin every single week for years and years, it's been a long time since he's been back at the show. So I would say this was baffling but also fascinating. It was just a really, really interesting moment to end the night on. Sammy, what do you think of our final sketch of the night?
I mean, my thought is, how do you have Alec Baldwin in the building and not have him play Trump? Like, I don't.
Wait, what? Please tell me you're joking.
I'm obviously joking. This
no one clip that.
This was like I've almost like blacked out a little bit of the rest of the sketch, because that ending, I was just like I screamed. I was like, oh my god! It was like a jump scare. No, I mean, I mean, it was nice to see Dismukes, you know.
It was almost like you were Sarah and you were having hallucinations, and then Alec Baldwin was your sleep demon.
Yeah, and that's happened before, but no, I mean what's funny is we're obviously very focused on the Alec Baldwin of it all, but as a 10-1, like I from what I remember, again, I blacked out. I enjoyed it. The idea that you'd have a calm sort of recording, you know, for helping people to go to sleep, and then you're getting directed to, you know, be like loud, and the story itself was ridiculous. Like I thought it was like a funny sort of way to close the night, and I thought Dismukes had a lot of great stuff here. The kind of sort of monologue he has at the end where he says something about like how he looks like Brad Pitt, like all those lines were really funny. And then Alec Baldwin comes in, and I have completely forgotten everything else about the sketch. So yeah, just what a way to end the night.
Yeah, I think that, you know, from a meta perspective, I do wonder, like, you know, Alec, like I said, like really big friend of the show, like clearly very strong friends with Lorne. Have to imagine he's going to be part of the 50th anniversary celebration next season. Maybe he hosts next year. I don't know. But I have to think that maybe the way to do that, to smooth it out with anybody who does have their concerns about the situation, is like, yeah, let's throw him in a sketch at the end of an episode, sort of rip the Band-Aid off with Alec Baldwin, and the next time we see him, it's not that surprising anymore.
That's literally how it felt like. It was just like ripping the Band-Aid off. It's like, all right, we've done it.
Like, now next time he shows up, it's like not that big of a deal, right? So Amanda, what did you think of this?
What a way to like throw him in though. Like 2 seconds in the last sketch, like a sketch that you thought the previous sketch was the last one. You're just throwing it in and like assuming that 90% of live viewers are asleep at this point. Very interesting.
We had to get Baldwin in the show, Amanda. Of course they had to throw it in.
It's so, yeah, one of those times where I wish I could be a fly on the wall to understand the decisions or the discussions that went around, you know, surrounding this. If he's just, obviously they didn't like fly him in from somewhere to do this 2 second. I guess I shouldn't say obviously. I doubt they flew him in from somewhere, you know, far to do this 2 second. I don't even remember what his part was. I think I was so surprised to see him. What was his part? What did he just yell something?
He comes in to replace Chalamet at the end.
Replace Chalamet. Okay. I also feel like
because everybody wants Alec Baldwin working on their projects right now.
Right, their comm app projects. I guess that's the joke. Yeah. I forgot completely that Andrew Dismukes had that whole like incelly monologue until Sammy just said that. I completely forgot about that. I liked that he was like, "Oh, like Chalamet, like you're really awful to work with." Like, that was my favorite line from Dismukes, and this was such like a Dismukes sketch that like I love when he's like aggressive. It's just that's comforting to me. I thought it was like a funny concept too, like the comm app. First, I was like, "Oh, Timothée Chalamet has a really calming voice." I remember they did that comm app pre-tape with like a lot of the. It was like when Trump was first getting indicted, maybe, and they were doing like all the Democratic figures were like monologuing about it. Is that what it was? The last comm app sketch?
I don't remember. Yeah.
It was like somebody like in the like they were like
CNN,
talking about
CNN
Trump.
says Nigel in the chat. Yeah,
it was CNN. Yeah.
Oh, there was a CNN sketch last season. Yeah, you're right.
Yes. So it was they've done comm app type stuff before. It was crazy. That was like very crazy to me and confusing. And I was like, I wonder if like Timothée Chalamet's team has a say in this. Like if they want Alec Baldwin coming in, you know, the last second of his.
Doubt it.
Yeah, I was just curious, very curious about all of it. I mean, he's trial. I mean, like that's not going forward. So that's one thing. I mean, I need, at first I was like, I need to look up what's going on in that case or like whatever happened after the resolution. Fascinating stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, either way, I do think that the sketch itself was a good sketch. Like, I thought Andrew Dismukes was fantastic in this sketch. Him and Punky, you know, a lot of people forget, like, they came in together and they had a little bit of a rough go last year as far as, like, just finding their way on the show. But, like, they both had really strong starts to the season, and I just enjoyed seeing them as a team together. I think Andrew was really, really strong in this sketch. Punky looked fantastic. And I think this was a fun sketch to end the night on. It was just like, again, like I just think there's only like we're going to be talking about this, but just the surprise of like, when will Alec Baldwin finally come back to the show? Again, another big question mark. And tonight that was answered. So at least that the next time that we're going to talk about this again, which we're sure to see him again, because he is a major part of Saturday Night Live's history. You can't tell the story of the show without Alec Baldwin. So to me, it will be very interesting to talk about it when he does, in fact, host the show again one day, or at least is a very big part of whatever we're going to see next year as they celebrate the history of the show. So anyways, that is my 2 cents on it all. We'll talk about it more during the week. All right. So next up, we're going to rate the show out of 10 to give our final thoughts on the night. So everybody in the chat, let us know what you think of the show tonight. As you're thinking about your ratings, let me tell you what's coming up here on the podcast this week. So Hot Take Show was tonight. Monday night, we got our round table where I will be back with 3 more panelists to break down this episode even more and talk about the sketch that we really want to talk about some of the, decisions that SNL made to bring back old characters. Was that the right thing? What do we think of Timothee hosting the show? And we'll talk about Jason Momoa as well. On Wednesday night, we'll have Mike and Victoria back to break down the numbers of the week. We reveal all the screen time. I'll be back on that show as a guest as well. And then on Thursday, we're revealing 3 more names on the list of the greatest cast members of all time. So that will be Thursday night at 8 p.m. as we get into the top 15 cast members in SNL history. Sammy Kay, what is your rating for the Timothée Chalamet episode here tonight?
I was very excited for this episode. Like I said, really loved the first Timothée Chalamet episode, and this very much felt like a sequel. And a lot of times, sequels can't necessarily live up to the original, but I still think this was a solid episode. I enjoyed seeing Timothée Chalamet back in the studio. Lots of surprises. The Chloe Trost, showcase was really great to see. And I think I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. All
right. 7.5 from Sammy Kay. Amanda, what are you going to rate this episode out of 10 tonight?
Okay. Very exciting to watch the whole thing live. I haven't done that in a bit. Energy feels a lot better. We'll have to see how I feel about a lot of sketches on a rewatch. Crazy to talk about the sketch by sketch right off watching, having only seen it once. Insane experience. Had a lot of fun with it. Having only seen it once, 7.7.
All right. Getting very specific there. 7.7. 7.5 from Sammy, 7.7 from Amanda. I think I'm a little bit lower than you guys on tonight. I mean, I really did have fun with a lot of the sketches tonight, but I do feel like the Nate Bargatze episode was so strong. There were elements in Pete Davidson's episode I really loved, and I think Bad Bunny's episode felt so original. This felt to me a little bit more easy, I think, on the show to sort of reprise a lot of those things. I have to reward them for Chloe Trost's moment on the show, which was really exciting. I think I'm going to go with 6.5 tonight. I think that feels about right for me. Perhaps this is the type of episode that improves on a rewatch, but I will have to do that tomorrow and then let you guys know on Monday night what I think. But that's how I'm feeling coming out of tonight. I did really enjoy it. I think season 49 has been really strong, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Momoa next week. So very excited for all of that. All right, Sammy Kay, thank you for joining us tonight to break down tonight's episode. Where can the listeners check out everything you got going on?
John, thank you for having me. You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and also Sammy Just Okay for other things as well on Instagram. And please check out the Superfan Takeover shows that we have done, and just keep watching the SNN. Thanks for having me.
Amanda, so great to have you back on the podcast for the first time this season. Looking forward to chatting SNL with you all season long. So please tell the listeners where they can check out everything you got going on.
Yes. Thank you, John. Thank you for having me back. Excited to be on more shows as we get farther into season 49. You can find me on Instagram at Barkin Face. And yeah, excited to be here. Excited to go to bed.
Awesome.
Oh my God.
Well, hold on just one moment, because I have to remind the listeners that if you want to find the show and never miss any episodes we're doing, you can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. You can also follow us at the SNL Network, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X to never miss anything we're doing. We got much more content coming out this week. All right, I want to thank everybody in the chat for staying up late with us tonight, as well as Sammy and Amanda for joining us on the show. My name is Jon Schneider from the SNN. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.